Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Amazi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
Why I don't give a fuck about society and why you probably shouldn't either. So hear me out. There's a lot of stuff that's going on politically right now in the United States. The realization that a lot of individuals that we've put on a pedestal might, at the end of the day, just be a bunch of hedonistic pedophiles who operate with complete impunity and look at everybody else as so far beneath them that they don't even consider many of us to be human. The state of politics, the state of the economy, it is so easy to have your values challenged and feel that we should do something about all of this. And if you're sitting there wondering, well, why is it that people are not rising up? Why is it that nothing is actually being done? When are we going to take action? I'll tell you the truth. Most people in America are not going to take action. The reason that most people, yourself and myself included, are not going to take action is because we have too much shit to give a fuck about in our lives. Our survival, the growth of our business, advancing in our careers, taking care of our children, paying our bills. And then we have our own other things in our lives that are important to us. None of us are willing to risk all of those things in order to save society. Many of us are waiting for other people to rise and do something about it. But here's the interesting thing. Even when people rise to do something, because we are so invested in the things we give a fuck about, we're just going to watch them and see, are these people going to be on the winning side? You're thinking, if they're on the winning side, I'll join them because I think I give a shit about these things. I'll give a shit enough when the energy becomes heavy. But the truth is, everybody else is thinking that way. So when you see a few people who actually probably have nothing to lose, go out there and try to do something about that, you wait to see what happens. But they get crushed and you go like, when are we really going to stand up as a collective and do something about it? Everybody's just tweeting on X. Everybody's just dropping their opinions because that's all we can do because we're too comfortable. In countries where people rise up, they rise up because everything has been stripped from them. And in American society, everything has not been stripped yet. I know some Americans think, you don't understand. Things are really hard. It's been worse than it ever was. Most Americans have not truly tasted the pain of individuals who live in developing countries. When I say I don't give a fuck about society, one of the things to understand is that you mentally, physiologically, you cannot care about everything that's going on. You cannot focus on building your career or taking care of your health if you have a health issue, or growing a business, or focusing on a charity that you are interested in, or some mission or the other. You cannot focus on all of these things and make any impact in the world. You have to focus on the things that mean something to you. And those things are very few. All these elites that are perpetrating whatever this suffering is on us mentally, on individuals who cannot protect themselves. Do you know how they got there in the first place? Let's put aside the networking and the privilege and all of the other things. Most of them, if you look at their profiles, only focused on the things they gave a shit about. As a result, as a collective, they are very powerful enough to hypnotize and manipulate an entire nation because they focused on one thing. And usually those things were power and wealth. If we do not learn from what they did so that they can impose their will upon us, we as a collective will never be able to do anything. The reason and the time that I recognized this was probably about 10 years ago. My best friend, Bobby, died in a car accident in Texas. I was devastated. I went to boarding school with Bobby. He protected me from a lot of fucked up things there. He was a great friend of mine. He was a good person, loved by so many people. And when he died, I realized something. I realized that we were so busy as a society. We were so busy consuming, being involved in religion, trying to build businesses, trying to get married and have relationships and travel and fight the man and doing so many of these things because we were afraid of dying. We are so busy distracting ourselves from the reality that at any moment, it could be our number that is called up and we are done. And so we distract ourselves. And I decided one thing at that moment. I decided that I would always be aware of the fact that I could die at any moment. And that allowed me to focus on what I was going to give a fuck about and what I was not going to give a fuck about. And one of the things I chose to not give a fuck about was society and the drama in it. The only reason I'm speaking about it right now is to awaken within those of you who are wasting your life and your time. And you're just like, do I really give a shit about society? Is to really have you tell yourself the truth. Look yourself in the mirror. And if you really don't give a shit about any of these things, then tell yourself, I don't give a shit about it. Like, wait a minute. You're trying to say, JK, that I shouldn't give a shit about all these children who were being raped? What I'm trying to tell you is that there is nothing wrong with feeling bad about something horrible and terrible that shouldn't have happened. But you must also be compassionate to yourself and recognize that you will never be able to have an impact on any of these things if you do not focus on the things you give a fuck about. You cannot focus on, oh, what is happening in Sudan? What is happening in the Congo? What was happening in Syria? What was happening in Gaza? What is happening in Myanmar? Like, if you were to, there are people who are, if you just let the algorithm show you those things, you will become one of those people who is just like, why are we talking about all these pedophiles over here when in Myanmar, Thailand, and Laos, there are tens of thousands of people that are literally being kidnapped, enslaved in data centers, and forced to scam people. And they will do this until you're almost done and burnt out from sitting down in front of a computer for 20 hours. I'm not exaggerating. Then they start drawing your blood. They randomly pull you away from the data center and they start taking your blood. And as you die, they start harvesting your organs. This is something that's happening now in one part of the world. Now, as you're listening to that, if you're just like, yeah, I'll Google that and check it out, the truth is you're not going to give a shit about it if you're more invested in what of these elites have been doing to children on islands. So what does that tell you? It tells you that you are not going to be able to give a fuck about anything. And at the end of the day, what are you really going to do? Seriously, what are you really going to do except be loud? You're not going to go out there on the streets. You don't have the financial wherewithal to do anything else. Just, we should use our voices. We should use our voices. At the end of the day, the people who make the decisions, the decision makers, are the people who focus for a long period of time on the things they gave a fuck about. And the people who are putting that suffering on you, those elites, if you look at how they came up, yeah, let's put aside the networking and all the people they knew. It was also focusing on the things they gave a fuck about. This has nothing to do with morals. This has to do with universal principles about the way the world works. When I understood this, I just decided that for my peace of mind and for my ability to live this life fully, I had to focus on the things that I give a fuck about. This does not mean be selfish. A lot of the things that I give a fuck about involve being compassionate to other people and helping other people. There are groups of people that I see certain things happening to them and it fucking destroys me. But I have to conserve my energy for those people. Anywhere I see an opportunity to help or raise awareness about something, I will do it. But I will not stay paralyzed. That does not contribute to anything. You will end up yourself being a victim when your mind is scattered. When you wonder, how do large groups of people become a victim to something? How is this happening? Is because that large group of people is not focused on one thing. Let me tell you this. If you were to decide, I don't give a fuck about society, I only give a fuck about this one thing, and you start focusing on it, and some situation or something threatened that one thing you were giving a fuck about, or you would move your attention from this thing to completely stopping or destroying this other thing that was getting in your way. That is exactly what you would do. Now, when a whole group of people, when you look at developing countries, they are all trying to survive. They're focused on it. So there's a lot of fucked up things happening to them. There are people getting kidnapped, there are people getting raped, there are people getting murdered. And they're like, yo, I wish I could give a shit, but I just need to put my head down and focus on this. But the moment all of those things become too much and it starts focusing on their ability to survive, the collective's ability to survive, the collective will now move their attention to whatever that thing is. And they will take down that government. They will take down those people. That is how society works. And until we either start focusing on the things we give a fuck about, or everything is stripped from us to the point that we are focusing only on survival, not much is going to change. You don't need to take my word for it. I didn't just randomly come up with this. I have watched what has happened in societies throughout the short time I've been alive, and I've also read my history. We do not change. We repeat history. But most importantly, our number can be called up at any time. I know this is a hard pill to swallow, but let me tell you this. If you have not built yourself up to the point that the thing you give a fuck about, you're just like, I'm doing the thing I give a fuck about. I'm succeeding at the thing I give a fuck about. I am making something of myself and making an impact in the world. Then all these things distracting you are wasting your time, wasting your life, wasting your years. Do not waste your time, your life, and your years on things that don't matter. Find something that is meaningful to you and do it. Make an impact with your time here. Because most of you who are just like, no, this is something that's important. I would have done my part. And what the fuck is your part? Well, your part is at best, you went on the streets and protested. But the rest of you are just reposting shit on social media. If there was no social media, if there was no internet, you would have done nothing, not a single thing. And that is the reason I don't give a fuck about society. Focus on the things that you give a fuck about. And if you find yourself in an environment that is not conducive to you focusing on the things you give a fuck about, then do like I do. And I suggest to all my mentees in our 20s mentor program, get the fuck out. For some of you, the best thing you can do for yourself is to have a different perspective of this. You cannot have the right perspective because you are being manipulated if you are in the United States. You are living in an energy, you're living in an environment that is purposefully being manipulated. Everything you see on the news, everything you see on social media, even the people, the TikTokers and the influencers that are talking about things, and they're all telling you like, hi guys, you won't believe this. They are propagating information that is being fed to them by a system that's already been manipulated. So you're in that. You have to physically move yourself to a different place to be able to see what is happening. And if you cannot physically move yourself to another place because you cannot afford it, you're confused and you don't know how to, then you need to stay where you're at. But at the same time, you need to divorce yourself from all the news, all the propaganda, all the bullshit, and you need to lock in to the things that you give a fuck about. Because if you cannot afford to leave your environment, my brother, my sister, I don't know what you've been doing. You've been focusing on the wrong things. Yes, you're struggling. Yes, there are things holding you back. Those things affect me and my clients as well. But what does it take but a couple of years to work yourself out of that situation? All right? Enough said. I don't give a fuck about society.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, You're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving? Then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.